of the Jewish people and the Torah up one notch. We spoke about their being rooted in Ak. Of course, the Torah is in the external part of Adam Kadmon, and the Jewish people rooted in the inner part of Adam Kadmon. Then we went up into the Or Ein Sof. What do we say? Where's the Torah rooted in the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum? Chachma of Ein Sof, right? And basically we wound up saying that is the light that's included inside the essence, right? It's basically as high as you can get, and the Jewish people come from the essence themselves. And we say this is the level called Hu, right? Remember, we said Hu Ushmo Echad. He and his name are one. So his name represents the Torah, because the Torah is called, from the beginning of the first letter of the Torah until the last, it's called one big name of Hashem. The Torah is his name. And the Jewish people precede the name, they represent the essence. So we said that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, and we need to reveal the Malchus of Hashem, which is essentially reveal the essence of Hashem, we have to have a Yid who comes from the essence of Hashem, but he's not alone. He has to bring the Torah with him. And how does he bring the Torah with him? He says the 10 psukim of Malchus, right? Those 10 verses of, why does he need the Torah? How do these two things come together? Because we said if you just have a Yid, yes, you have the essence, but it's not revealed. If you just have the Torah, you have like revelation, but revelation of what? Right? It doesn't reveal anything. So we said that when the Yid comes together with the Torah, since the Torah's inyan is light, and it interacts with the essence of the Yid, so it has the ability to bring forth a revelation of the essence. And that's how these two entities work together, the Jewish people and the Torah.
But do we actually say the 10 utterances?
We say the 10 psukim of Malchios, right? Yeah, 10 statements. Yes. All right, so we're going to take it from page Chaf Aleph here. And we'll start at the second paragraph down. It says, "V'lechein kol yeridas v'hamshachas haTorah lamata." Therefore, the whole descent of the Torah down below, or b'shvil Yisrael dafka, right? It only came into the world for the Jewish people, as we've been saying, right? That it's there in order to bring light and reveal the nature of the essence of the Jewish soul. That's why the Torah was given. And through the avoda of the Jewish people fulfilling the Torah, we said that, right, that the Torah was like a seed and it has to go into an eretz chafetz, it has to go into a good ground, which means you have to be able to collet and tofes so that it can, right, you plant a seed in unfertile soil, it doesn't grow anything. So the Jewish people have to do avoda with the Torah to enable it to unite with them so the light can actually reveal the essence. Through this avoda of the Neshamas Yisrael and fulfilling the Torah, Al-Yedei Dafka, Naisa Atzmecha, Lios Giloy Bechinas Atzmus Yisbarach. This creates the growing, right? Which is ultimately the revelation of the essence of God. Blessed be He. The growing, the tzmicha, in other words, like the seed, it goes in and it actually grows. The Jewish people have to work like their own soil, so to speak, themselves, in order to enable this Torah to reveal their essence. And what this is ultimately will be the revelation of the future, when we actually reveal the nature of the essence of the Jewish soul through the Torah. When it's all complete, that's what we're all waiting for, is going to be this massive revelation of God's essence. The essence of God will be revealed. Back now to the mimer. It's a good sign to get to the beginning, because it means you're getting to the end. But it says that we started this mimer. It says, remember this? This is how we started the mimer. It says, for 2 days He healed us, or He made us live. On the third day, He established us, and we will live before Him. And we started to go into different explanations of what that means. I mean, one of the things we says, Yomayim here, Hem b'chinas mamali kolomim v'sovi kolomim ad reisha the kol dargi, right? Which means when it comes to the beginning, where there's this notion of 2 days, he wants to say that these 2 days of healing us, bringing us to live, this is a representation of mamali and sovev, and while you're at it, basically all the way up to the top. In other words, different realms of light to the highest peak of the concept of light, right? Ubiyom hashlishi yikimenu v'niche lefanav. What does it mean that on the third day He's going to establish us and we'll live before Him? Lefanav is, he says, to be taken literally, mamish, literally lefanav, bechinas penimius va'atzmus ein sof. Lefanav comes to the word penimius, which means you're going to go beyond the light. And when it says on the third day, we're going to reach lefanav, the penimius, so we're going to reach the essence. Va'al zeh anu omrim ve'ein dome lecha moshienu l'stchias hamesim. And on that third level, we see there's nothing compared to you, our Redeemer, like the Tchias HaMesim, right? When it comes to Tchias HaMesim, it's incomparable. That Gilu the Tchias HaMesim, he bechenes mi dome lecha, right? There's different stages, mi yarech lach, right? But the idea is that this level of who can compare to you, which is the highest level of incomparability, this refers to the final stage of Tchias HaMesim. And what does Tchias HaMesim represent? It represents leaving behind all the light, the Mamali, the Sovev, into the highest levels, until you get to the Atzmus Mamish. It's only from the Atzmus Mamish that produces this thing called Tchias HaMesim. And therefore, it's Midom Elacha. No one can compare. Midom Elach. It's even higher than this. We started the class with, than the light, which is included in the essence, right? So it's still light, even though it's not shining, and even though it's so essence-like, it's still not. It's still called Shmo. And here we're reaching to this level called Tchias HaMesim, the Atzmus, which is going to the light, which is going to the essence beyond even the light, which is included in the essence. Right, like we say in davening on Shabbos, we say 4 different levels of incomparability, right? Shehem neged daled medrego sheyesh ba'orein sof, and each one is very sort of organized in such a way that it's relating to something in the Seder Ishtalshlif inside the Orein Sof. We're going to see them in a second. Right, so there's 4 levels of Orein Sof. Ein aruch lecha. The first thing we say is ein aruch. What does aruch mean? Comparison. Like we say something has an erech, it's comparable. So we're all inside the Orein Sof right now, right? But even inside the Orein Sof, there's 4 different levels. And the first level, when we say you're incomparable, is that there is a godly light which becomes the makar for the olamos. Right, so it's at least the source of the world. It's not the light of the world. It's not yet in the worlds, but it's the source that can be it's the light that can be the source of the worlds. Shubachin is richo ka'erech, and the idea is that it's already in a state which is totally incomparable to the actual worlds. It's their source.
What does Richo mean?
Distant. It's a distant comparison, meaning to say that it's not comparable. Richo ka'erech means incomparable. The ein zulasacha. The next thing we say, ein aruch. The next thing we say is ein zulasacha. What is this thing that there's no other? Hu bechinas haor v'gil de'orin sof shedavuk makoro. So this is already. What's that? You with me?
How did you spell that?
Ein zulasacha.
With a bait or a
Zulasacha.
zula?
Yeah,
Okay.
like a zulas is an other. And we're saying there's nothing other than you, right? So there's nothing comparing to you. That's talking about light, which is at least the source of the worlds, or Ein Sof, but the aspect of it which is going to be the source of the world. There's nothing other than you. This is called a light of Ein Sof, which is devuk b'makoro. Its business is not going and looking and say, I am a klal, and there's some worlds that are going to come out of me. I'm the source of the worlds. No, it's not. It's looking the other way. It's clinging to its source, and all it knows is that. All it knows how to say is there's nothing other than you. It's not busy looking and saying that I'm a root or a source for something below me. The next stage you get to, Efes biltecha, right? There's 0 besides you. You're familiar with these words, I hope. We say them every Shabbos, right? What's that?
What happens when we utter ain?
Well, I don't know what happens when you utter them, but what you're supposed to be thinking about is this, and it's a very common meditation. If you haven't come across this before, it's 4 stages of the Orein Sof, all those things. And when you know what they mean, it's actually a much richer davening because it's very specific. You're going and you're not just saying nothing compares to you. You're the best, right? You're saying four very specific things, which is intended to lead you from stage to stage in a meditation of going into like the oneness of Hashem.
Stop for a second. What's Vein Zulaska?
Ein Zulascha is the light that's clinging to the to the source of God, as opposed to a light which is designed to be a source for the world. Then you have this idea, Efes Biltecha. There's zero besides you. And this is what we've been talking about, is like the sort of the source of the Torah. There's nothing besides you, is the Or Ein Sof, not as it's clinging to its source, because if it's clinging to its source, that means it's shining. And only what? Since it's shining, all it wants to do is just be, it's focused on where it's shining from, and it's clinging to there, and it won't let go, and it's in a state of like, basically infinite elevation with nothing in sight except for its source, but it's still outside of its source, and that's why it's saying there's nothing other than you. It wants to get back inside. And then it does get back inside. Efes biltecha. There's zero besides you, which means it's inside of its source. It's all snug inside the atzmus, and therefore it can happily say there's nothing else. And that is the source of the Torah. It's the light that's inside of the essence. And then we get to finally what we've been searching for, mi domelach. Right? This is a whole nother level. You've gone past the light, and you get to you. Who is compared to you, which is the atzmus itself. So another way we could basically put this is, we could say that the light that's
God.
what's that? Yeah, talking about God.
So is Atzmus God?
Atzmus is God.
Everything's God.
Is there like something like a higher level than Atzmus?
No, that's the end. Right? That's the source of all the Or Ein Sof. It's him.
So when you say Atzmus, that's God. Are you allowed to say God?
You're allowed to say the word God.
Yeah.
In certain contexts, you can't use it too liberally, because it is even Hashem's name in other languages has to be treated in a kadosh way. But in the context of our class, I think it's okay.
Okay. So all the different things we're talking about that are not Atzmus, which is aka God.
Yeah.
Those are not talking about God. They're talking about creation.
They're not creations, revelations. That
So
God
revelation-
himself.
Revelation is a creation.
No, it's not. In fact, there's two distinct words for that. There's something called Atzilus and Bria.
Yeah.
Atzilus is the word which means emanation, and it's specifically a word which connotes something which is before the Bria, before the creation. Because creation is a very specific thing when we talk about creation. It does not, because creation implies two things: a creator and a created being, which sort of has its own experience. The Or Ein Sof doesn't have really its own experience as being other than Hashem. And that's why all the things that it's saying is that there's nothing besides you. Efes biltecha, ein zulasecha. It doesn't know from its own experience. Its own experience, if you say, how are you today? And it would say, there's nothing besides God. Right? That's what its line is. Because it doesn't have I'm okay. Right? It doesn't have its own experience. It's not a creation yet. It's just God trying to reveal himself. Like you could, or let's say a king, he walks around, when you walk into 770, there's some kind of an experience. You're like, whoa, like I'm not experienced, I haven't even met the Rebbe yet, but like his emanations, the experience of all his grandeur is like sort of coming out. When you see a person's face shining at you, right? And you have an experience, you might not actually be dealing with them, but like the shininess that's coming off them. There was like a Baal Shem Tov story about when the Baal Shem Tov was in the formative years. His brother-in-law, Kitover, from Kitov, right? Gershon of Kitover, who was like the kind of the Rav, and the Baal Shem Tov was just his brother-in-law. He didn't reveal himself yet. So he was playing like a kind of a game with him, and every once in a while he would dress like in simple clothes, but if he wanted to, he could just sort of snap his fingers and like turn on like the Baal Shem Tov-ness. And all of a sudden, Reb Gershom, instead of like sort of talking to him like a regular person, he would all of a sudden like see the glory of this person and be like humbled and couldn't talk. And then he would turn it off, and he'd be like totally confused. He'd just talk to him like a regular person. So what is that? It's a revelation of his light that's coming out of him. It's not necessarily that he was seeing him, right? He was because when he turned it, he could turn it off, right? When he turned it on, you're seeing a revelation. So there's an emanation of God, which is not something that God made. It's something that's trying to beam off of him so he can show himself to you. Himself, as opposed to him showing you something else, which is not himself, which is a creation. Anyway, that's a minor point. But wait, but you were in the middle of asking something. No, so the Atzmus is he himself, right? Who, as opposed to Shmo. Yeah.
I want to compare Ein Tuloskala, Ein Domela. What's so special the word domain that it represents the highest level? Is it compared to the sea? What's going on here? Why domain?
I was wondering myself exactly. I'm not sure. He doesn't explain, to my knowledge, exactly the uniqueness of that word, but we can go the other way and say this is the most unique way of understanding the comparison because it reaches this pinnacle level of talking about the essence. Dome. I'm not sure exactly, to be honest with you. It's a good question. I was wondering myself.
Similar to the right definition?
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, yeah, you could say like this. There's 4 levels, right? So Ein Aruch, we're saying is that it's using the word sort of comparison, and it's saying there's no comparison, but at least it's putting the Or Ein Sof in a relationship with what comes after it, right? And therefore, it refers to the Or Ein Sof that is the source of the world, the lowest part of the Or Ein Sof. Ein Zulasacha, there's nothing other than you. The Or Ein Sof has it shining, and yet it's saying there's nothing other than you. It's clinging to the source of God. Then there is Efes Biltecha. There's 0 besides you because the light is no longer like running to get inside, right? In Zulasacha, there's nothing other than you. It's already inside. It's one with God. So it's Efes Biltecha. There's 0 besides you. And then Ein Domelacha is Tchias HaMesim, right? You get to the actual Atzmus of Hashem beyond the light. Back inside. Hu b'chinas Atzmus Mamish. Sh'lemayla gam b'chinas ha'or ha'kalu b'atzmuso, which is higher than the light which is inside of the essence. Shezeh yizgal la'asid b'tchias HaMesim. And we're saying is that essence, the Atzmus, will actually be revealed in the times of Tchias HaMesim. Not just light, but him. So you might have to say, what does that have to do with me? It has everything to do with you. What you're trying to do is, how do you reveal that essence? Where's that essence hidden that you can somehow reveal it? And the secret is that it's hidden inside of you. The only place that Hashem found that he could actually make a thing that could be a representative of that highest level of his essence is the body of a yid, neshama and body of a yid. And therefore, only through your taking the Torah and attaching it to yourself, and basically slowly revealing your true self through the Torah, because that's what the Torah does. When you apply Torah to a person, both in your thoughts, you're thinking Torah ideas, you're saying Torah words, you're performing Torah mitzvahs. It's basically like when you plant a seed in the ground, it unleashes the earth to come and become an apple tree, right? So that the secret apple tree that's inside of the earth, it doesn't come out without a catalyst, which is this Torah that you put on a Jew. And as we do this, one Jew after the next, one moment after the next, and you're eliciting this, we are revealing the essence of God, which when it happens in full, it will be the Tchias HaMesim. So all the work that Jewish people do, the whole gullus, right, is ultimately the avoda of revealing their essence through the Torah. That's how it's going to ultimately be. Oh, here's the word dome. He explains. Yes? It's interesting. What is dome? Dome is how we say when a child is born that you give birth to someone who's dome lecha. Dome means like a clone almost, right? And when a child, that's the whole idea is that the birth that takes place from this seed, which was being germinated by the Jew, when it finally produces, so there's this apple tree, which is essentially the revelation of the essence of the Jew, it's called a birth. And when a person has a child, it's called domelacha. You give birth in a way that is like you. The child's like you. So you will be godlike, right? Ein domelacha means there's nothing compared to you except for a child who's called domelacha, right? When you give it birth, he's called compared to you. He looks like you. So the idea is that when the Yid will reveal himself, basically, he's going to be like the child of God who's compared to him, give birth to someone who's like you. Now, through planting these Torah mitzvahs, and he's using the word planting, now it should make a lot of sense, because he said the Torah is like a seed into the Neshamas Yisrael, who are like this ground, Hamakayim Torah mitzvahs, who fulfill the Torah mitzvahs, Naisat Smicha Vavlada Bedomi Lo Mamash, that it creates the growth and the birth in a way where it's actually it reproduces God in His fullness. Shuiz Galus Ein Sof Atzmus Mahusa Shiz Gal B'Tchias Hamesim. And this is a revelation of God's very essence, which will be revealed in the time of the resurrection of the dead. Canal. And that's what we said before in the pasuk that we're darshaning, V'nichya lefanav, that we'll live before, on the third day, we're going to live before Him. We said lefanav is b'pnimiyuso, that's the level of the atzmos being revealed. V'zeu mitzad koach atzma, the neshamas Yisrael shelamayla mitorah, and ultimately, it's really the Jewish people. It's their own power. Remember we said like the woman. First of all, she elicits the seed from the man. So the fact that there's even like a power that can reveal her, she brings that out of the man. And secondly, the whole idea of making a baby, it's all from her. She does it all by herself, basically. After eliciting the seed, she's the one that produces the material of this child, just like the ground produces the material of the tree. So we're saying that all this revelation of the essence of God that's going to be in the future, it all comes from the souls themselves, who themselves are higher than Torah. This that we start the pasuk, we said you will live for 2 days, or you'll be healed for 2 days. Kai ala Torah shnikra yamim. So now we basically see that this pasuk is actually referring to these two different realities that we've been discussing for so long together, the light and the essence. You'll live for 2 days is referring to light. We said it's mamale, sovev, all the way up to reaching to the level of the light that's inside the essence. It's called 2 days. Why? Because the Torah itself is called yamim. Yeah, right? So, as we'll see in a minute. Right? So that part of the pasuk is talking about the Torah. Yichyenim yomayim. There's the ending of the light and the contribution of the Torah to this operation. Where do you see the Torah is called Yamim? As it says in Torah Or, the words Vayi Miketz Drush Habes. There's a second in Torah Or, in Parshas Miketz. There's two drushim over there. In the second one, it says Vayeh Etzlo Shashuim Yom Yom. Where do you see the Torah is called days? Because there's a whole pasuk in Mishlei, which refers to the Torah in various different levels of being Hashem's joy and Hashem's pleasure. It's a status. It makes the world joyous. It makes Hashem joyous. There's like a description in a very sort of mystical way about the greatness of the Torah over there. And one of the things that it says is, "I will be by Him like a plaything, like a joyous entity, yom yom, day after day." But what is yom yom? Yamim. Right, so the Torah is called like Hashem's days, 2 days. What are these yom yoms referring to? Day. It refers to two spheros which are called Keser and Chochmah. And what is Keser and Chochmah? Another way of saying Soviv Kolomim and Mamali Kolomim. That's what we said. Yomayim, Yichayenu Yomayim. It's going to live 2 days. What are these 2 days? They're basically the different aspects of Torah. We said it could be Chochmah. And if you take Chochmah up into its highest entity, it's the light which is inside of the essence, which is essentially the Keser. So Keser and Chochmah is Sovev and Mamale. Those are the 2 days that we're saying is basically the aspect of light. And that's why it says, Yichayenu miyomayim, that you're going to give us life for 2 days. Shetorah hi b'chinas chayim, because we know Torah is called chayim. Eitz chayim hi l'machazikim ba. The Torah is called life. So he says he's going to give us life for 2 days. It's talking about simply the Torah, which is called 2 days. Chochmah Keser enlivens us, just like the seed basically enlivens and gives life to the ground that's going to grow. Like we see, the Torah is called, right? Eitz Chaim, Torah's Chaim, Hem Chayenu. This notion of life is a reference to Torah, and that's what it says Yichayenu miyomayim. That's why it's associated with these 2 days, which refers to Chochmah and Keser, Mamali and Sovev. V'gam mitzvahs nikra yamim. And not only is Torah called days, but mitzvahs are also called days. Where do we see this? There's a pasuk that says Yamim Yutzru, right? That days are formed. V'lo achad behem, right? Days are formed means that a person is granted a certain amount of days in his life, right? It's a little bit of a scary thought, but at the end of the day, there's a certain number of days that man will walk the earth, each person. And it says that days are formed. The idea that the days are formed is that not just stam days are formed. Each day is formed because it's supposed to be a lavush that it becomes a mitzvah, right? So it's like it says Avram Zaken Babi Yamim. Remember, Avram was an elder and he came with his days. So the simple meaning of he came with his days is like his days kind of passed, right? But the Zohar explains he came with his days. When he left this world, he came with every single day. That he never left a moment unused, that he didn't cloak with the service of God. So how do you cloak a day with the service of God? Mitzvahs, right? They're called levushim, they're garments. The physical operation of taking your time and space and binding it to Hashem. So mitzvahs are also called days. Torah is called days and mitzvahs are called. So Yomayim, Yechayirim Yomayim is referring to the operation of Torah and mitzvahs. Amnam biyom hashlishi kimenu hu b'chinas neshamas Yisrael. But this third day, right, which is on the third day, he's going to raise us up. This is no longer the light. This is no longer the Torah mitzvah side. This is the neshamas Yisrael side, and that's what it says. Yikimenu al derech kumilacha, right? Like it says, you shall rise up. Mevur b'lekutei Torah divra maschil yonasi dahainu sheyagi l'shona shumakar neshama. This idea of kumilach or kumilacha, this is the notion of raise yourself up to yourself. In other words, find yourself back in your source. A yid comes down all the way plummeting into a physical body. He comes from the essence, but he's ostensibly very far outside of what seems like the essence. So basically, raise yourself up is essentially saying align yourself to your true essence. And that's the idea of yikimenu, like raise yourself up to where you truly belong. And then we will live literally b'pnimiyuso, meaning in the state of his essence, i.e. forever, mamish. Okay, so we've gone through the verse there that the mimer starts with. V'amshachas gilu izeh hu al yidei tshuva. How do you get this revelation of Tchias HaMesim? The secret of living forever is through tshuva. Shu avoda b'chinas shoresh u'makar neshama. When you do tshuva, you're doing an avoda with the source of and the root of your soul, as it's known, right? Because what does it mean to return? Tshuva means you're basically finding yourself back where you started, which you started at the essence. That's so too with the avodah of the Jewish people, the souls of Israel fulfilling the Torah mitzvahs. Mamshichim gam kein b'chinazu, right? So tshuva is he's saying is the way to get there, but also we could say that the work of Torah mitzvahs draws down this level. Mitzad ma'alos u'midrikas and neshama amakayma Torah mitzvahs. So on one hand, the tshuva is different than just fulfilling Torah mitzvahs, because tshuva is basically kind of climbing higher than Torah mitzvahs, right? But he's saying that also just doing Torah mitzvahs can fulfill this. Why? Not because the Torah mitzvahs have the quality of the atzmus, but because the ones who are performing the Torah mitzvahs have the quality of the atzmus. And therefore, in theory, just as a level of like a tzaddik, without necessarily doing tshuva, as we've been saying, the light of the Torah reveals the essence of the neshama, and therefore just regular avodah of Torah mitzvahs can reveal this. However, it doesn't just mean any old fulfillment of the mitzvahs. You have to fulfill the mitzvahs with what's called a kabbalah soul, right? So in other words, you have two options here: tshuva, or fulfilling the mitzvahs with an intense level of kabbalah soul, taking the yoke upon yourself.
Seemingly why? If it's the actual essence, what would be the difference with the intention?
Why kabbalah soul?
I'm saying, what if the Torah, if the Jew is the ground, the Torah is the light, seemingly it doesn't matter what the intention is. As soon as you get the light, it's of the seed.
No. On the contrary, right? We were saying that you could put the seed into a ground, which if it's not like a healthy ground, Which, what does it mean a healthy ground? It means it's ready to receive this seed inside of it.
Right.
If there's something holding back the seed from being niklat and sort of fixed, and so that it can enmesh with the ground, the seed does not do it. Right. So the Kabbalah soul is basically breaking the ground. Right. So that the Torah actually mingles with it and can actually grow something. If you lack the Kabbalah soul, all the Torah and the mitzvahs in the world won't really help you, because it doesn't reveal the soul. It doesn't take the earth and turn it into a tree, right? Only if the ground is fit for it. Yeshus is blocking it, right? I mean, don't forget this awesome thing we're talking about, the Jewish soul. There's a little secret, puzzle. Hashem, he stuck it into a gaivadik animal body that wants to do everything other than God, right? So it's a miracle that you can break this thing. Obviously, we don't want to do any breaking, but Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemayim is a submission, and that's the only way to unleash it. Yes, you have the seed, the Torah, you got the ground, but if the ground's not plowed, you're not getting anywhere. Why? Again, because also there's another thing. You're not using your whole, besides this, what we just said about breaking the ground, there's also, if you're not using Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shemayim in the performance of the mitzvah, you're not using your whole soul. So in other words, there's parts of the ground that the seed's not getting to, which is basically you have an aspect. What makes your soul so amazing is that it is not just an intellectual entity, right? People like to think that the pride of the human race is our intellect. But according to Torah, the pride of a Yid is his ability to serve God beyond the intellect, right? To serve him super rationally. Yeah, this is something wondrous, that you have an intellect and that there's something deeper inside of you that connects in such a way that it can override its sophisticated intellect because it feels the call of true faith. That's even a greater power that we have. And so therefore, if you don't serve Hashem with that, which is called Kabbalah soul always means I'm going to put the yoke on my neck. It means I'm not doing this because it makes sense or it feels good. If you don't serve Hashem with that, you're leaving out the best part of the Yid. So how are you going to reveal the essence if you're not using the part of the Yid which reveals the essence?
It may not be something that the high feeling calls you. It's not feeling. It's an awareness that there is something beyond your understanding that you acknowledge. Nothing you're feeling at all.
Okay, I'm not arguing. Did I say feeling?
Yes.
Okay, but it's a borrowed term. But thanks for correcting us on that. Sometimes you can feel it, by the way. I would say the opposite is true as well. If you get really to do it in the full measure of what can be done, then this hidden faith and this calling, what did you call it? A calling?
Awareness.
This an awareness, right? It should, if done properly, permeate your mind and your heart. So in other words, it says Naisa before Nishma, agreed, which means you don't base it on your intellect. But I believe Shammai was speaking about it to Maimer on Shavuos. But it also says Naisa v'Nishma, which means after you do the Naisa, your Nishma is off the charts. So you do understand it and you do feel it as well. In other words, it's not a rejection of those things. It's just that those things aren't going to get you there. But once you get there with this awareness, then on the contrary, if you don't attach it to your understanding and your feelings, then you're actually also relegating it to not being part of your whole being. So you have to sort of integrate it as well with your intellect. But now you have a supernatural intellect based on a higher awareness. You have a feeling based on a higher awareness. So it's not totally to negate those other aspects of yourself. It's just that those other aspects are not sufficient. In other words, in this case of Kabbalah soul, where you're doing something which is beyond the intellect, the nice that comes before the nishma, the whole point is, why are you doing this? Because I was commanded. In other words, there's no reason, there's no feeling, right? I'm following this awareness that there's a God who's giving me this command. As it's known in many places what Kabbalah soul is. And through this, you can actually unlock. He says, mamshichim, draw down. But in many places it says you have to be careful using the word draw down with the atzmus, because you're not drawing it from here to there. It's everywhere, right? But inside of you if you have this Kabbalah soul and you link it up with the performance of mitzvahs, you sort of unlock this level of Atzmus. If you leave the Kabbalah soul behind, you're leaving the Atzmus behind as well.
So we are drawing it down to this physical plane.
Again, drawing it down, it's everywhere. You're basically unleashing it, unlocking it. You're allowing it to be visible, right? He calls it drawing down, mamshichim, but I'm just saying, oftentimes you see that they say kiviyachol when they say mamshichim the atzmos. And going back to the beginning of the first mimer, this is the concept of the woman having this extra bina. Bechinas Knesses Yisrael shenikra kala. We said before, what is this bina? We really mean the Jewish souls, which is really Malchus, who's called the kala, right? Bina Yisrael given to the woman, the wife is the kala. This is the Knesses Yisrael. What's that? Shemakablim me'atorah. Why is she called the kala? She's receiving from the Torah. Right, the Jewish people are called the kala. They're the makabel from the Torah. But really, when the kala is called the makabel from the Torah, like she's lower than the Torah, that's only as the yid comes into the realm of the Seder Ishtalshalos and comes out of her source, and therefore falls down into becoming a body. And therefore, the Torah is above her, the spiritual entity, like the man, her Baal, right, who's trying to raise her up and bring the light, right? Because the Torah is the light. She's like sort of this kli. In a certain sense, it looks like she needs him. She's dependent on him. She's just the earth. You're this fantastic seed, which has all this information in it. So, but that's how it looks when it comes out of its source. We know that in the source, it's the other way around. She's the essence, and the light comes out of her. Right? But when it comes and inverts inside of the Seder Ishtalshalos, it looks like the opposite. The essence falls into something dark and unseen, and the light looks like the dominant force. So therefore, in this capacity of the Ishtalshalos, the Torah is called the Chasin, and she's called the Bina Yasera. She's called the Kala. She's the Makabel from the Torah. But that's only in the Seder Ishtalshalos realm. In this capacity, the Torah is above us. She bechinas tipas abba shenimshach b'Yisrael. It's the idea that it's like this, the father, right? Literally, when you have relations, the father is on top, right? And he's bringing this seed down from above to below on this lowly entity, right? He's like the progenitor. He's like sort of the life giver when it comes to how it looks in the Seder Ishtalshalos. And Neshamas Yisrael hem makablim, right? He's literally called the Baal, the owner. He's the koneh. He buys her, right? Kaviyachol. Amnam yesh ben bini yaser, but we're not going to be fooled as Jews with this misogyny, right? Really, we say that this woman has the bina yaser inside of her. She's got the extra bina. Why? Because yes, she only looks like she's fallen to the bottom, because that's how the atzmus represents itself in this lowly world, as an unseen thing that has no light. Because light, at the end of the day, is kind of cheap, right? It's only trying to reveal another thing. So the Atzmus is not light, it's the thing itself. So when it comes down into the world, it also doesn't, it's not the shiny object, right? It's the object itself, which the shine is meanwhile not coming out of. You have to bring the shine to the object, which is attaching the Torah to it. But ultimately, she has this Bina Yasera, so when the Torah will be attached to her, all of a sudden she can reproduce the essence of God. And through her comes the ability to reproduce God mamash. She has the atzmus all locked up inside of her. We're calling it right now the Bina Yasser. We sort of coined a new term, which is that this hidden latent power of the atzmus inside of the woman is called that's what we're calling the Bina Yasera. Yes, she falls down to the Kala level where she's a Makabel, but she's got this Bina Yasera, which is essentially this Keser, this Atzmus inside of her, which she ultimately is unlocking the ability to reproduce God. Ubederech Klal. We'll hold here.